Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Whoosh! Hey, I'll swing it a bit better than that.
That was poor.
Australia's theme parks are in a constant state of growth right now. Compared to 10 years ago, our parks are almost unrecognisable, with new coasters, themed attractions, and even some completely new parks joining the party. So in an ideal world, where do we go from here? What does each park need to be thinking about next? In today's video, we're going to chat about one ride or attraction that each Australian theme park should add next. Whether it's a coaster, a dark ride, a flat ride, or a flume, or even something completely different. We're talking about what each park needs the most to take their ride portfolio to the next level. We're going to go into detail about where in the park the ride or attraction would fit, how we would theme it, and whether anything at the park needs to close or change in order to fit the new ride. So without further ado, let's start on the Sunshine Coast. First up, we're headed to Aussie World on the Sunshine Coast. This quirky and fun family amusement park opened on the sunny coast in 1989. It's a moderately sized park with big expansion plans, currently home to a decent collection of flat rides, all themed in a quirky and humorous Australian manner, as well as some interesting attractions like a couple of walkthroughs. Aussie World is currently in the process of an expansion plan which supposedly includes several new flat rides, one of which is already constructed and just awaiting an opening date, and there have also been stories circulating about the addition of a water park, which I definitely think is a fantastic choice for the park considering the hot and humid Sunshine Coast summers. Having a few water slides would definitely increase the visitorship over the peak periods. However, I'm going to work under the assumption that the water park is already happening and that it may actually be a separate gated park and come up with a unique idea of my own, even though I think the water park is probably the best choice. When it comes to Aussie World as it exists today, the market that it offers the least for is thrill seekers. The park seemingly wants to add a few more extreme flat rides to the lineup, but currently, if you're looking for thrills, your only ride options are the Pendulum Ride SX360 and the Mayhem Maze, one of the walkthrough attractions which is marketed towards teens and adults. As well as the water park to draw visitors in warmer months, I think Aussie World could use a big headlining attraction that becomes the poster child for the park for thrill seekers. Aussie World do have access to this plot of land to the north of the park, but I believe based on renderings that this is the planned site for the water park. That doesn't leave a lot more room. There is an L-shaped corridor of land around the southern end of the park, some of which is already taken up by the new flat ride. So whatever we're building, it can't take up an awful lot of room, because I also don't think there are any rides that we could feasibly remove that would free up enough space for a large attraction. So we're looking for a thrill ride that would become Aussie World's headline attraction, but that doesn't take up a large footprint and can be constructed in this little area of land on the southern end of the park. I think a tower-based ride is definitely what springs to mind, but I don't feel that a standard drop tower is quite enough to be a headliner. One option could be an Intamin sky jump. This model is a drop tower which tilts riders 100 degrees forward to face the ground before dropping. This gimmick would certainly make the ride a standout, even amongst other parks in Queensland. While I doubt that Aussie World can afford the kind of investment of something like Falcon's Fury at Busch Gardens Tampa, there are smaller models available, such as Icaros at Gronelund, which may be more aligned with Aussie World's budget. I would place the ride on this plot of land facing towards the park, giving it fantastic views over the rest of Aussie World before you tilt forwards. I would hope that the park could stick with their Australiana theming, which I think is their best work, and I would theme the ride to a wedge-tailed eagle. I would surround the queue with small eucalyptus trees and give the fencing a woven appearance, almost like a bird's nest, and complete the atmosphere with a regional soundtrack that includes the screeching of eagles and First Nations music, particularly the drone of a didgeridoo, which I really feel could become a haunting sound in anticipation of such a thrilling and intimidating ride. Capacity is rarely a concern at Aussie World, but if they felt that the 8-seat gondola of a ride like Icaros is too small, Intamin do also make a 16-seat version, which is yet to be installed at any park around the globe. Personally, I've never seen Aussie World draw a particularly huge crowd, so I feel that the 8-seat version is likely more budget-friendly and would work just fine. Intamin have a sterling reputation in Australia, their drop towers are known to be reliable, and the tilt gimmick would definitely give Aussie World something that theme park fans would be more likely to travel for. I'd love to see Aussie World gain another credit at an extreme coaster, but realistically I don't think they have the space to do that while also building their water park. I think a tower ride suits what they're in need of perfectly, giving the park an extreme headlighting attraction in a compact footprint. So my suggestion for Aussie World is the wedge-tailed eagle. Next, we head south to Australia's largest theme park, Dreamworld. Opening in 1981, Dreamworld has become something of an institution on the Gold Coast. Spanning 210 acres, the park features rides, attractions, wildlife, and dining experiences across several themed lands. And while it does retain the record as Australia's largest park, there has been a large overturn of attractions over the last decade in the aftermath of the 2016 Thunder River Rapids tragedy. For that reason, I think Dreamworld is one of the parks that we're likely to see more and more new attractions from in the coming years, whether they're big or small. King Claw is already under construction, they've recently revamped their wildlife area to Wild with Australian Geographic, and the brand new Rivertown opened its gates in late 2024. There was also the recent announcement of an expansion which would include retail spaces and a resort, which gives us a more definitive boundary of the theme park itself, and also indicates the park's ambition to expand into a full tourist destination once again. I think that means we're likely to see investment continue from Dreamworld. While it might slow as the park recoups their expenses and pays off any debts from their recent investments, I don't think it's going to be very long before Dreamworld are looking at their next new attraction or renovation. For me, the glaring gap in Dreamworld's lineup is a family thrill ride for summer days, whether that's something indoor or a water ride. Aside from Sky Voyager, all of Dreamworld's major attractions are outdoor, and with no ability to cross gates to Whitewater World any longer, there simply isn't much of an option for families when it comes to something to cool off on those hot summer peak days. Of course, the burning question that we have to answer is whether Dreamworld is willing to build a water ride at this point in time. For me, I think we're getting close to a time when visitors will see Dreamworld as it exists today as distinct and improved from Dreamworld as it was in 2016. And as long as they aren't building another Rapids ride, I don't think that any negative press would be too damaging. It has been almost a decade, and the park has changed substantially in the years since. However, I would perhaps suggest that the park may want to wait until after the 10th anniversary of the incident, when the press is likely to run the story again. If construction was underway on a water ride at that time, it would likely be kindling on a press frenzy fire that Dreamworld just wouldn't need. I think in 2027 and beyond, a flume or water ride of some description should be high on Dreamworld's priority list. But for now, they definitely need something to offer families to get out of the Gold Coast sun, and to me, that screams dark ride. I've been hearing a lot of talk about the potential reuse or removal of the former Tower of Terror station, and while I love the idea, I have been concerned by the building's small size, which I don't think allows for a lot of space for a tracked or trackless dark ride. However, there is one ride model that would fit in this space, which I think Dreamworld could do a truly fantastic job with. The Intamin Dynamic Motion Stage made its debut last year with Danse Macabre at Efteling, and it immediately won big accolades. This dark ride variant features a large circular rotating stage with 6 large gondolas, each capable of 360 degrees of rotation on their own. As well as these multiple axes of rotation, the ride stage is capable of tilting and 3 meters of lift and 0 gravity drop. Efteling themed theirs to the 1874 symphonic poem Danse Macabre by Camille Saint-Saëns, which is an orchestral piece that tells the story of death appearing at midnight on Halloween. Not only does the dynamic motion stage offer a unique ride experience with incredibly immersive theming, projections, and screens that could give Dreamworld the opportunity to create a truly world-class themed attraction, but its simple circular nature as opposed to a tracked dark ride gives it a much more uniform and compact footprint, meaning there is a good chance it could fit within the Tower of Terror station, or at least within the footprint of the building if the infrastructure itself is not suitable and demolition is required. With the removal of the remaining part of the Tower of Terror tunnel, which I fondly referred to as the Big Green Penis, a bit of renovation to the station building, and the incorporation of some extra land from behind Tiger Island, I think this could be turned into an immersive and neat dark ride attraction. What makes this ride difficult to theme, however, is that it sits at almost a quad point on the boundaries of Ocean Parade, Kenny and Belinda's Dreamland, Tiger Island, and Rivertown, and considering that I'm imagining a multi-story queue and building that would play a part in the skyline, that could result in some clashes. Personally, my approach would be to make this ride a part of Rivertown, incorporating the tunnel under the railroad as its entrance. An outward appearance of a mountain or a towering Chichen Itza-inspired temple would blend well with Rivertown and Tiger Island, and look okay from Kenny's Forest Flyer as well. Meanwhile, the park could simply try to conceal vantage points from the end of Ocean Parade. A mountain would also be a nice callback to Avalanche, a former attraction which was nearby at the park. I'm going to name this ride the Scorpion's Curse, although I think there is potential for a character to be developed within the Rivertown lore and name the ride after that character instead. The ride would build upon the story established by Jungle Rush, telling of a curse uncovered by the Tasmans as they explored the temples and caves of Rivertown. Looking further into the future, I would like to see Dreamworld construct something in Rocky Hollow, along with the current footprint of Motor Coaster, which needs to go. But I think that is more on the timeline of happening closer to the Brisbane Olympics, and for now, my suggestion is the Scorpion's Curse. Let's continue down the Pacific Highway to Warner Brothers Movie World. Australia's signature movie theme park opened in 1991 adjacent to the film studios operated by Village Roadshow at Oxenford. It features rides themed to Warner Brothers movie IPs, as well as a stunt show, parade, and themed experiences around the film industry. Yet, this is another park in a big period of turnover. I've made my thoughts abundantly clear about the state Movie World is in currently several times, and I won't bore you with those thoughts again, other than to provide some context. Currently, Movie World is seeing a lapse in ride reliability and a decrease in quality of several of its attractions that has the park in a worrying state. While Scooby-Doo Spooky Coaster is set to reopen from renovation in the coming weeks, other rides are also in desperate need of attention, including Superman Escape, which has yet again gone down due to reliability issues, the Hollywood Stunt Driver Show, which is in desperate need of refreshing, and Wild West Falls, which has never looked more downtrodden and unkempt. Unlike our previous two parks, Movie World has absolutely zero space to work with, and there is only one exception, which is the former spot occupied by Doomsday Destroyer. I expect that Movie World may have plans to replace that former flat ride, and that those plans may simply be on the back burner while they handle the Scooby renovation. While I'll be glad to see that happen, I don't think it's the most important change that Movie World needs to make, so I'll choose something different for this video. While Movie World doesn't lack indoor or water attractions quite as significantly as Dreamworld does, I still think the park is in need of another dark ride or flume ride, predominantly because of the park's dwindling themed offerings. Without Scooby or Superman in operation, the only truly themed rides in the park are probably Justice League and Wild West Falls. The latter is in need of some TLC, and Justice League is a rather uninspiring dark ride. A new themed experience could certainly bring a lot more life back to the park. One ride model that immediately drew my attention was the new Mack Rides rocking boat, which premiered at Futuroscope in France as Mission Bermudes. This innovative ride combines a flume ride, a track dark ride, and a roller coaster to create an exciting, dynamic, and interactive ride experience, and there's a lot of exciting features that could give Movie World a lot of potential to work with. However, the only problem with this ride model is the area of land it would occupy. Mission Bermudes, the ride's prototype, covers a very significant land area of over 100 meters in length. My initial proposal was to create a family-friendly version that would occupy the show building, which currently houses Junior Driving School. But even for a family-friendly version of this ride, I don't think this show building is large enough to occupy that ride model. However, there is one other option, and people are not going to like it. As I've mentioned, Wild West Falls is in desperate need of TLC. The ride is roughened, the theming is largely in disrepair, and the whole facade just looks a little bit sad. One proposal could be a replacement of the ride with a Mack rocking boat with a Western theme. I doubt that this would be a viable solution, however, since the park has very recently invested in new boats for Wild West Falls. I'd love to hear your thoughts on whether this is viable in the long run, but for now, I've chosen something else. I want to turn Junior Driving School into a part dark ride, part walkthrough attraction, for example, a Vekoma Madhouse. This experience would revive the storyline of Bugs Bunny going missing in Australia with an original storyline, animatronics, special effects, and voice acting. The Vekoma Madhouse also features an optical illusion room that gives guests the illusion that they are being spun upside down. I want Movie World to fully commit, training ride operators to play roles in the story of the ride, and making it a truly immersive group experience that lasts around 15 to 20 minutes per cycle. Give it a fun title like Bugs Bunny's Runaway Capers or something, I don't know. But as long as it's a fully immersive experience designed to capture an audience and be a fun experience for the whole family, not just another ride purchased and placed on a flat bed of concrete. The priority is to bring some soul back to the park. I do eventually want to see my rocking boat idea as well, but for now, my suggestion is Bugs Bunny's Runaway Capers. Stupid name. I couldn't think of any puns to do with Australia. I'm sure the Looney Tunes riders will do a better job than me. Right next door to Movie World is Wet n Wild, Australia's premier water park. Opening in 1984, today Wet n Wild is one of the most visited water parks in the world, drawing in over 1 million guests every year. Currently, it's home to nearly 20 water slides, as well as 4 pools and 2 children's areas. I've seen this park get a bad rap lately, but I don't think that's entirely fair. A lot of the recent reviews I've seen that Wet n Wild is in a shambles have come during the winter months, and during the construction of the upcoming Zoom Zone slides. Yes, I agree, it would be very disappointing to pay the full ticket price and have a messy park with construction zones everywhere and slides closed down, but ultimately, That's the price you pay for going in off-season. Whether the ticket prices should be reduced at times like that is an entirely different debate. But all I'm saying is I don't think that Wet n Wild is in as quite a bad a shape as some people are suggesting. There's a good mix of slides and attractions, and the park is large enough to accommodate fairly big crowds. That being said, the queues do get long, and there are a couple of areas around the park that could use some TLC. With the removal of Surf Rider, there is now an awkward little nook in the middle of the park that's bare and unused, right adjacent to Whirlpool Springs, which has been looking worse for wear for quite a while now. There's room for a large water slide here, but I think what Wet n Wild needs is another more relaxation-oriented attraction. This area with the wave pool and lazy river either side is where families tend to congregate and sunbathe, and Whirlpool Springs could use a decent replacement to sponge up some of the crowds from both of those attractions, which do get very busy. Enter Volcano Springs, an upgraded tropical volcano-themed spa and relaxation area with a series of hot tubs, sunbathing spots, and even a sauna for the grown-ups. There could be a little cafe attached serving Hawaiian-themed beverages, and even a few fire effects intermittently spewing out the mouth of the volcano facade. This would be the perfect place for the grown-ups to congregate while the kids run off to the thrill slides, helping to spread those crowds a little better in the center of the park, and really upgrading from Whirlpool Springs, which has kind of looked a little bit of a shambles since it was transformed into hot tubs instead of the original Whirlpool. Plus, that towering volcano would add tremendously to the atmosphere of the wave pool and the skyline of the park in general. I think it's a no-brainer, really. The upgrades to the slides have gone quite well, and I think the park now has a well-rounded collection. Zoom Zone's opening should help a lot, and now it's time to refocus on those more relaxing elements of what makes Wet n Wild a great water park. It could be accomplished with fairly minimal use of space, and I think it would add one more excellent drawcard to Wet n Wild for those who aren't so keen on the big slides. My suggestion is Volcano Springs. Let's complete our look at the Gold Coast parks by heading next to SeaWorld. This marine mammal park first opened in 1971, the oldest of the Gold Coast theme parks. Unlike the others, as well as rides and attractions, SeaWorld features exhibits, shows, and displays highlighting marine wildlife, including dolphins, seals, and polar bears. The park operates a wildlife rescue charity which has rescued thousands of animals in distress throughout Australia's east coast. SeaWorld's most recent investment was the New Atlantis, which saw the park get its signature coaster, a Gravity Group Woody named Leviathan. The level of theming in the New Atlantis was an encouraging step for the park, but there is still a little bit of soul missing compared to how the park was around 20 years ago. The SeaWorld that I grew up with featured rides like the Bermuda Triangle, one of the most detailed and complex dark flume rides Australia has ever seen, as well as timeless classics like the Corkscrew and Viking's Revenge. Objectively, Leviathan is a better ride than most of those, but SeaWorld is still missing that truly immersive experience, much like Movie World is. Take me on a journey into the heart of a volcano to discover a reclusive alien species. That's the kind of thing I want from a theme park. But there's something even more fundamental that SeaWorld is missing, and to me that's a flume ride. Yes, they do have Storm Coaster, but it's not really the same thing. The flume section of Storm consists of a single splashdown and a 180-degree turn. The kind of flume ride that I'm talking about is not one that is so concerned with thrills, but more about the slow dark ride section. When I'm at SeaWorld, I want to get a little bit wet, if you know what I'm saying. I think the park could use a lengthy flume ride with a detailed, themed flume section, and I've got an intriguing solution. In 2024, Intamin unveiled Catapult Falls at SeaWorld San Antonio, the world's first launched log flume. This ride launches its boats to a speed of 30 meters per second, features airtime hills, a vertical lift, and a 53-degree drop, the steepest on any log flume in the world. The ride is at the fore of flume rides in terms of technology, and it's screaming SeaWorld's name. And to me, the location for this ride is incredibly obvious as well. After the removal of Viking's Revenge, the Viking castle in the center of the park has been gutted, and it's seemingly only a matter of time before something is done with it. The castle is connected to one of the monorail stations, so perhaps the park is waiting to perform both of those demolitions at the same time. I would demolish the castle and use this plot of land to begin construction on the park's new launched log flume, the Bottlenose Caves Adventure Ride. The castle structure would be replaced by a series of beautiful caves and waterfalls that the flume would flow around, as well as intertwining with Storm Coaster's layout, which is quite bare underneath and could use some interaction and decoration. The story would focus around SeaWorld Foundation rescuers heading into ocean caves in search of a dolphin they've been tracking that they suspect might be in distress. In the end, it's the dolphins who save the riders from rising water levels and an imminent cave collapse by helping to launch the boat out of danger. I'd like to see the ride utilize audio narration in the same fashion as Bermuda Triangle, with immersive theming and effects. This should become the headlining family attraction at the park. Whether you're a thrill seeker, a younger member of the family, or just here for the animals, much like Bermuda Triangle and Viking's Revenge were, this will become the ride that the whole family gathers together to ride as a group. Not only would this bring a log flume back to Australia's parks, but the launch, vertical lift, and airtime hills would make it completely unique among the few flumes that we currently do have, making it a really standout attraction for the park and around the country. As a coaster fan, part of me does want SeaWorld to build one more extreme thrill coaster to really give their lineup a finishing touch, but that's not what SeaWorld is all about. And I think first and foremost, they need to bring back that classic family flume that everybody wants to ride. So my suggestion is the Bottlenose Caves Adventure Ride. In late 2025, the Big Banana is set to become the next Australian theme park to feature a roller coaster when they open their new Alpine coaster. Opening in 1964 as one of Australia's very first big things, the Big Banana has evolved from a quirky piece of advertising for a roadside fruit stall into a family fun park with a water park, ice skating, laser tag, and much more. Today, it's the largest amusement park between Sydney and the Gold Coast, with a large variety of attractions and activities to offer. The Big Banana recently announced $50 million in investment over the course of the next 20 years to upgrade the park, which includes the installation of their new Alpine coaster from Vigand. It's fair to say that we could expect more investment from this park in the near future too. For now though, it appears the Big Banana is going down the route of being a sort of adventure park rather than a theme park, with a variety of experiences rather than just rides. While they do offer rides like the toboggan and Alpine coaster and the water slides in their water park, a lot of their other attractions are more experience-based, like ice skating, laser tag, a plantation tour, and mini golf. However, I can think of one thing that I'd love them to add that I think could lend itself to the expansion of the park. Meet the Flying Banana High Ropes Course and Zip Coaster. Manufactured by Australian company Ecoline, this attraction will utilize the trees already growing at the summit of the toboggan hill, with some installed poles to allow the layout of the course and Zip Coaster to interact with the toboggan, the Alpine coaster, and the hill above the water park. These high ropes course are always a popular upcharge attraction, and the Zip Coaster would give Big Banana another adrenaline-fueled experience that really turns this hill into something of a precinct for rides at the park. It's also the kind of experience that families will dedicate some significant time to, and may even come to the park exclusively for. High ropes courses tend to be relatively popular attractions even when they stand alone. Now eventually, I'd like the park to also move on to expanding back into this patch of land here, which used to be home to a stretch of the park's monorail, as well as the mysterious and infamous Bunyip animatronic in the lagoon. This is a fairly large patch of land, and I'll be excited to see if the expansion plans include something large in this area. But for now, I think a high ropes course and Zip Coaster would be an excellent and profitable addition for the park. They're affordable, Australian-made, they utilize existing trees where possible, and they can be elevated above other attractions so that you don't lose a massive footprint of land. And they'll be a draw card for families. I don't see any downside to these for the Big Banana. I'm looking forward to seeing what else this massive expansion will bring, but for now, my recommendation is the Flying Banana High Ropes course. The next park might be one of the most challenging to find a ride for because we're headed to Luna Park, Sydney. The Harbourside Heritage Amusement Park opened in 1935 and has had a long and tumultuous history. That history is part of what makes this ride suggestion such a challenge because the park is under strict heritage codes and legislation that restricts what can be changed and removed, as well as height and sound restrictions on new rides. Along with these problems, Luna Park Sydney is already full to the brim. Aside from a few modestly sized seating areas, there is essentially not a patch of ground that isn't covered by some sort of building or attraction at this park. Something will have to be removed to make way for our ride, and really there aren't a lot of options. We can rule out the Wild Mouse, Rhoda, and Coney Island due to heritage protections, as well as the Crystal Palace, and the Ferris wheel and carousel may not be heritage listed, but they are an essential part of the park's identity at this stage. The entirety of Lunaland has only been around since 2021, so that's staying, and the event space is a big cash cows for the park, so the chances of altering the Big Top or Sonar in any way are very minimal, which really leaves two options: Volare and Tango Train. I can speak to my experience as a former Luna Park ride operator and say that both of these rides have proven themselves to be somewhat problematic. Volare is a bit of a lemon and has some gremlins that cause maintenance headaches, but that's what you should expect from Preston and Barbieri. Tango Train, meanwhile, has operational issues out the wazoo. Without exposing all of the park's inner workings and problems, there have been issues with the design of the seats and restraints that cause the ride to be a long-term headache for the park operators. If Luna Park was invested in building something new, one of these two has to go, and I'm saying it's Tango Train. Volare is newer, it fits the heritage amusement park vibe really well, and while it has problems, it's high capacity and runs well when it's behaving itself. It may be a stalwart of the park, but I think I have a solution to replace Tango Train that may become equally iconic. Huss Rides have a brand new model called the Spinning Cruiser. This is a sort of variation on their breakdance model, but way cooler. It seats 48 riders and places the ride operator center stage in the rotating platform. With lighting effects, different ride programs, and special effects able to be installed on the ride, it has great potential as an eye-catching attraction for Luna Park, particularly after dark. It even has onboard audio in the gondolas. Think what Tango Train attempts to be with its flashy lighting package and disco soundtrack, but dialed up a notch. The ride can also alternate between more thrilling and more family-friendly cycles, just like the Tango Train does today, so it's possible to keep that up if Luna Park are invested in the idea of an attraction that appeals to both thrill seekers and younger riders. I tried to find a former Luna Park attraction name that would suit this ride. I know the park loves doing callbacks to its former iterations at the moment. I mean, Big Dipper, Bug being named after Tumblebug, and so on, but I really couldn't find anything that stuck. It could be the third iteration of the Tango Train, but I don't think that that name suits this more dynamic model. So instead, I'm going with a new name, Dance Party. Splurge a little on the lighting and special effects, give it a good sound system, and really play around with having the operator in the middle of the ride platform. I think this could be a really engaging ride that has a true atmosphere about it, even more so than the Tango Train already does. Plus, Huss offers the option to sync the ride cycle to a soundtrack and special effects, which would just be the most hardcore thing that we've ever seen on a flat ride in Australia. Can you imagine that at Luna Park at night? That would be incredible. I love the Tango Train for what it is, but it's one of only probably 2 candidates that I think could feasibly be removed to make way for anything else at the moment, and I think it's the bigger of the 2 lemons. This ride model would keep that disco spirit of the ride alive while being better, more eye-catching, and hopefully more reliable, as Huss are a good manufacturer. My suggestion for Luna Park Sydney? The Dance Party. Up next, we head south of Sydney to Jamberoo Action Park. This seasonal water theme park opened in 1980 and has already become a reasonably popular regional attraction, including several water slides that are among Australia's biggest and best. The park also features a toboggan, chairlift, and mini golf. Jamberoo has a lot of room to work with. The slide precincts are all quite spread apart, and there is acres of free space. Like many water parks, some of that free space is designated for picnic and cabana areas, but there is plenty of room for more attractions to be added to the park with minimal sacrifice of green space. I would say what Jamberoo is missing most is actually a few more dry attractions. Obviously, it's predominantly a water park, but they do have the toboggan, so they're obviously not averse to the idea of having dry attractions as well, and I think a few more would benefit them. On days where the weather unexpectedly turns south, maybe a strong wind or the temperature drops, then people are going to want activities that don't involve getting in the water. And if all of those crowds head to the toboggan at the same time, those lines are going to be huge. I initially thought of something like a sky coaster or a zip line, but those kinds of attractions are low capacity and won't be much help in distributing those crowds on days where the water slides aren't as popular. I do think Jamberoo would benefit from taking the Funfields or Adventure Park route and adding a mechanical ride or two. And I'm going to take a leaf from Adventure Park's book and recommend a classic. I think Jamberoo should install a wave swinger as the beginnings of a new, small, dry ride area, preferably one from Zierer. I've operated wave swinger rides from both Preston and Barbieri and Zierer, and the German manufacturer's model is far superior. These attractions are classics, family favorites, they're high capacity, they're relatively easy to operate and maintain, and if you go with a reputable manufacturer like Zierer, they're reliable too. I would place this new dry ride area right here at the base of the hill. The goal would be to include 2 or 3 rides, maybe expand to include some kiddie rides further down the line, but for now, a combo like a wave swinger and a carousel would do perfectly, just to spread those crowds a little. I don't think Jamberoo need to do anything fancy with the theming here either. Much like the bobsled and chairlift, these attractions would not need to be the headliners. They shouldn't take the spotlight away from the water slides, they're just there as a supporting act. But I think they're a very important supporting act that retains visitorship when the weather is iffy, distributes crowds, and soaks up queue numbers, and just adds to the kinetic energy of the park as well. It's a simple suggestion maybe, but one that I think that would benefit the park greatly. My official suggestion for Jamberoo is the wave swinger. We round out New South Wales by heading to the south coast for Magic Mountain Merimbula. First opened in 1983, Magic Mountain is a small regional family fun park with a toboggan, a roller coaster, go-karts, dry slides, and water slides, mini golf, and a small collection of kiddie rides. While a modest park, it is a significant tourist draw card for the beachside town. Magic Mountain is currently owned by the Blighton Group, and under their ownership, the park has not added attractions very frequently at all. This corporation largely operates radio stations as well as a couple of ski resorts and cinemas, so their focus is mostly on the operations and entertainment side of the park. They do reasonably well for upkeep, but they don't add attractions regularly like other parks do. That being said, they certainly could benefit from one. At Magic Mountain, there is plenty for young kids to do, but teenagers and adults will probably get tired of the park before too long. However, the park is also operating on what I assume to be a relatively small budget. It's not a huge park, and it doesn't have the cash flow to be constructing complex flume or dark rides, or even rides from big manufacturers like Intamin or Vekoma. We need something that will provide some added thrills and engagement for older members of the family while also not breaking the bank. The park also has plenty of green space, but given the nature of the park, I'm sure they don't want to sacrifice a whole lot of it because families do like to sit down and have a picnic, so we don't want something that's going to consume a particularly large amount of space. When it comes to getting relatively cheap, reliable, and appealing rides that fit a small footprint, there is one manufacturer that immediately springs to my mind, SBF Visa. And with that being said, I actually want to propose a 2-ride package from the Italian manufacturer that could really offer something for the braver park guests. First, the park's second coaster, an SBF Big Air coaster named the Screamin' Demon. This coaster model is compact, fitting the same footprint as one of the larger SBF spinning coaster layouts, and the added bonus is that it also offers another ride experience for kids and families with the standard spinning seats. But those hamster wheel seats will offer something really unique for the park and something else for thrill seekers to do. It's low capacity, but Magic Mountain never struggles with queues. And we can draw a little bit more capacity with the second ride of the package, which I'm naming Hellfire. This is an SBF Dance Party 360. They're a miniature compact version of an inverting pendulum ride. They fit such a tiny footprint that you could probably put it within the Screamin' Demons layout, and yet they're a thrilling inverting ride that can seat up to 12 passengers. Together, these two rides would be modestly themed with a flame-colored aesthetic, becoming a miniature precinct of their own, and definitely two of the signature thrill rides at the park. I don't think this would be an investment that would break Magic Mountain's bank, and yet it would provide them with a proper thrill ride, something which they don't currently have, and another coaster as well. Honestly, I just think Magic Mountain should start browsing SBF's catalog either way. They're an excellent solution for smaller amusement parks looking for reliable rides on a budget. I could even see a standard spinner fitting in at the park. But for that extra thrill and appeal, my suggestions are the Screamin' Demon and Hellfire. Up next, we hit Victoria's capital of Melbourne, and the first park on the agenda is Funfields. Opened in 1985, Funfields is a largely water-based theme park in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, featuring a collection of water slides and play areas, alongside a toboggan and a couple of flat rides, including the relocated pirate ship from SeaWorld. It's not a particularly large park, but it has been growing lately with some decent little investments. Unlike the other water parks that we've discussed so far, I actually do feel that Funfield's next step should probably be to install another slide tower, but unfortunately they have wedged themselves in somewhat in terms of space. The park has a good collection of dry rides for a park of this size. They're all fairly well themed and designed, with a large focus on family and kids attractions. At this stage, I think that collection is adequate, and if the park is seeking to expand its audience, another slide tower is the way to go. Funfields already has its big raft slides in Supernova and Gravity Wave. They've got their splash zones for kids, a racer slide, and a couple of more basic raft slides. So I think what the park is missing is a larger tower of family thrill body slides, along the lines of what the Zoom Zone is that's being constructed currently at Wet n Wild. We're looking for a tower consisting of at least 3 or 4 different body slides. Ideally, you would want the slide towers to be uphill from the rest of the park, like the existing ones are, but they've sort of built all the way across the park and cut off the uphill land from the rest of the park. For that reason, I think they may have to do some removal or readjustment to fit another major slide complex. I think one possibility could be an extensive reconstruction of the tower that currently houses Blackout and Wipeout to affix a series of body slides to that tower. It may even be possible to do that without removing either of those existing slides. Currently, those slides don't have a splashdown pool, but instead simply one of those runoff troughs, so it should be easy enough to expand that concrete pad just slightly and add 3 or 4 more of those, particularly since they would be narrower for body slides than raft slides. For a manufacturer, I'm going with Swimplex Aquatics, who are the manufacturer behind Fully 6 at Whitewater World, and a number of the slides at Outback Splash, as well as the Big Bananas water park. They're Australian-made and probably more affordable than going with an option like Whitewater West, who are more known for their raft slides anyway. I'd hope that the slides would include those transparent lighting effects like at the Big Banana and on the Zoom Zone, and I'm going with the naming trend of the tower, and I'm calling them the Freak Out body slides, with the 3 slides being named Psycho, Loco, and Wacko. It's a simple idea, but I think a collection of body slides is something practical, affordable, and popular that Funfields could add that would boost their collection substantially and help to spread lines even further on popular hot summer days. So my suggestion for Funfields are the Freak Out body slides. Up next is one of my favorite theme parks in the country, Gumbuya World. This family amusement park, wildlife center, and water park opened in 1978, originally known as Gumbuya Park. In 2016, the park was sold to a group of investors who have rebranded it to Gumbuya World and set about efforts to turn it into a more ambitious and full-scale theme park destination. The park is separated into distinct zones that include a full-scale water park, a wildlife zone featuring Australian and domestic animals, and their dry ride zone. This was the area of the park that gained Gumbuya World a lot of publicity in 2022 when the park installed the relocated Maura Skyloop from Dreamworld and a Vekoma SFC named TNT. There haven't been any significant additions since then, but I absolutely 100% know what I would like to see from them, and I hope it's an obvious choice. What I love the most about TNT and Project Zero, and in fact about Gumbuya World at large, is the cute and quirky theming. The park takes on a fun brand of Australiana that I find really endearing, and they put a lot of attention to detail into their theming and presentation for a park of this size. I think it would serve them well to include another flagship attraction that gives them the opportunity to expand on that theming further and really demonstrate their creativity. My one question mark floating over this suggestion is space. When Gumbuya Park was transformed into Gumbuya World, the owners actually condensed the park's footprint into a smaller area. As you can see on Google Earth, the remnants of the park's former toboggan and go-kart track are actually still there, as of the most recent imagery, located behind the current park. The question is, how much of this land has been sold or rezoned, and how much of it would the owners be willing to reutilize as part of the park? Gumbuya World isn't completely out of space, but they're not blessed with an abundance of it inside the current park boundaries either. So the possibility of expanding those boundaries would be helpful for this suggestion. But in either case, whether using that extra land is a possibility or not, my suggestion is for Gumbuya World to get themselves a flume ride. I think it's the obvious and natural choice for their next big investment. As a hybrid theme and water park, a flume ride lends itself naturally as another means of getting wet, and it leans perfectly on Gumbuya World's unexpectedly impressive theming quality. This would be the next step up for them, building a ride that focuses more heavily on theming as part of the ride experience during the ride cycle, and not just stylizing a roller coaster around the station and queue area. As mentioned, there isn't a lot of space to work with, but even just expanding the park's northern boundary back by about 20 to 30 meters in this far corner behind Project Zero could give them enough space for a decent little log flume. If they're struggling for land, Zamperla make a high-quality log flume on a very compact scale that could work nicely. I rode one at Connieland and I thought it was super impressive for such a small footprint. It's probably lower capacity, but if they're desperate and they can't use the land, it could work. In terms of theming, I love Gumbuya World's sense of humor and Australian identity about their theming, so I want them to theme this ride to a crocodile hunting expedition, and I'm calling it Saltwater Falls, a compact but immersive log flume that takes riders on an adventure to search for a fabled and legendary giant saltwater crocodile in the depths of the Australian marshlands. I feel like Gumbuya World could have a lot of fun with that story and give it a lot of narrative heart, humor, and silliness. I've heard a lot of talks about Gumbuya World getting a signature thrill coaster, whether that's a Woody or an RMC Raptor or whatever, but I'm putting my coaster enthusiasm aside for a second. Let's remember that 4 years ago, this park's only coaster was Mining Racer Coaster. This is a theme park in its infancy, and I think there's a lot more fleshing out to do of the overall ride lineup before we start thinking about more coasters. I think a log flume, maybe even one of those smaller ones by Zamperla if it's necessary to keep it compact, is perfect for what the park needs right now. It's another larger scale attraction for families, giving the park more diversity and more ability to experiment with their theming and style. My suggestion for Gumbuya World is Saltwater Falls. Next, we head to possibly the biggest challenge of the video, Luna Park, Melbourne. Australia's oldest amusement park opened in 1912 and has operated pretty much continuously ever since on the beachfront in St Kilda. It's home to some very historic attractions, including the Scenic Railway, which has been in operation since the park opened, making it the oldest operating roller coaster in the world. What makes Luna Park Melbourne such a challenge to find a new ride for is the heritage situation combined with the park's layout. The entire park is surrounded by the Great Scenic Railway as its outer boundary. There is no room or possible way to expand on the park's footprint. We have to work with what we've got. And what we've got is not a lot. It's a tiny park and absolutely crammed for space already, so something has to be removed in order to make way for a new ride. Now immediately I know the ride that I want to remove, so we'll work from there, and that ride is Pharaoh's Curse. This ride model is incredibly outdated. The restraints are gut-wrenchingly painful, and they have an automated locking system that staples you with excruciating mechanical force. It's a nightmare machine. It's just not fun in the slightest, and I'll be glad to see this ride scrapped. Removing Pharaoh's Curse would open up a little bit of space here at the southern end of the park, but it's not a huge footprint either. And without one of the park's biggest thrill rides, we would definitely want to replace it with another thrill flat. According to measurements on Google Earth, Pharaoh's Curse takes up a space of around 15 meters by 7 meters, but with a little bit of rearranging, like moving the tram cafe over to one side and neatening up this mess of backstage areas, I think we can negotiate it out to a slightly bigger plot. We're looking for a high thrill flat ride that fits this relatively compact space and fits with Luna Park's heritage, funfair aesthetic, and I think honestly, one that could fit is a Huss Topspin. There isn't really anything else like it in Victoria. They're high capacity, much better than a twin hammer ride, and they still fit that high thrill attraction criteria. Plus, with a wide, long footprint, it fits the rectangular hole left by Pharaoh's Curse. The one thing I always did like about Pharaoh's Curse is that it seemed the most themed out of any of the flat rides at Luna Park with that little Egyptian facade, so I say we keep that theming around, maybe even improve upon it, and call this ride the Mummy. I think this ride would be much more popular and reliable as a well-known model from a reputable manufacturer than what Luna Park currently have, and it would suit the space quite well. This one was a challenge. I don't have a lot else to say. It's hard to suggest expansion plans for a park that literally cannot expand, but I do hope you like my suggestion of the Mummy. Victoria's final theme park is Adventure Park, located just to the east of Geelong on the Bellarine Peninsula. I got it right this time. First opened in 1994, it advertises itself as Victoria's biggest water park with 21 unique rides and attractions, including water slides, a lazy river, mini golf, a collection of flat rides, and paddle boats. The park is situated around a lake, and there is some room in the northeast corner of the park to expand, but I don't think the park is quite ready for a major expansion. While it draws some decent visitor numbers, it does still fall into the category of a small regional park, and I don't think that it's likely that there's significant enough revenue to be thinking about entire new precincts just yet. In terms of the park's offerings, I think that this is another water park that would mainly benefit from an expansion of the water slide offerings. Currently, the park is home to Tornado and Tsunami, two large thrill raft slides, and the Aqua Racer, a simple straight racing slide. It also features a lazy river and play areas, and there are two smaller raft slides located near the front of the park. I think the park could do with adding another water slide tower adjacent to the Tornado and Tsunami tower, with a few longer slides that are focused on families. For the riders who are too intimidated by Tornado and Tsunami, there really isn't a lot to do. The Aqua Racer is just a straight slide, so I imagine it gets old pretty quickly, and the slides toward the front of the park are quite short. I think a pair of family raft rides from Whitewater West, perhaps with a couple of body slides added to the same tower, could be exactly what the park needs. The family raft ride is high throughput with up to 6 people per raft, which would make it popular with families who all want to ride together. I'm going to name these slides Twisted Typhoon, with the slides interacting with one another as they descend, and I think this would fill a blatant gap in Adventure Park's current lineup. Tornado and Tsunami are great slides, but probably a bit big and intimidating for some riders, and there's not that much to offer if that's the case. Personally, I feel that's the obvious next step for the park. A third major slide tower focused on high throughput, fun family slide. My suggestion for Adventure Park, nice and simple, is Twisted Typhoon. Another park I wanted to quickly include is Perth's Outback Splash. Opening back in 1981, this modestly sized family-owned water park has been gaining a lot of praise recently, particularly from some of my friends like Perth Theme Park Life. I've been hearing a lot of good things, and I definitely wanted to include the park to talk about where I think it could go in the future, even though I don't know an awful lot about it. Outback Splash has been undergoing significant expansion over the last 10 years or so, but it is still modest in size. It features a few thrilling rafted body slides, mazes, mini golf, playgrounds, and more. Located in the Swan Valley to the northeast of Perth, it does seem like the park has a little bit of room to grow, and I hope to see it happen. For a park of its size, the water slide collection is quite good, and the mazes and mini golf offer good dry entertainment as well. However, there is only one large pool area, so my suggestion is actually to build a lazy river. I'm a huge fan of lazy rivers. If I wasn't a coaster enthusiast, I might be a lazy river enthusiast. They're a must-have for any major water park in my opinion. But more than just offering a relaxing opportunity for a swim, lazy rivers give you an opportunity to landscape, shape, and design an entire area of your park, and I think it could be the centerpiece of an expansion for Outback Splash. Whether they eventually intertwine another waterslide tower with the lazy river area, or they just add some nice landscaping, a couple of food stalls, and a bit of free space for picnics and sunbathing, I think it's a chance to build the size of the park. Lazy rivers often become popular congregating spots for families, and it's just perfect for that hot Western Australian weather. It may sound like an easy option, and if you're more familiar with the park than I am, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely visit the park one day, and on my next trips to the West, I'm gonna make sure I do. I'm going to name the lazy river Sandy Shores and focus it on themed and landscaped relaxation and sunbathing areas scattered around artificial beaches on the edges of the river. I think this would add a really beautiful new area to the park that they could continue to build upon for years to come. I don't have a lot else to say because, again, I'm not overly familiar with the park, so please let me know your thoughts in the comments. And for now, my suggestion is Sandy Shores. And finally, we head to Adventure World, Perth's premier theme park. Opening in 1982 on the former site of a limestone quarry, Adventure World remains Western Australia's biggest theme park, featuring water slides, flat rides, and the park's signature coaster, Abyss. The park has previously had a pretty consistent policy of adding a new attraction every 2 years or so, which was interrupted by the COVID pandemic, but since has seemingly resumed, with the park announcing recently the installation of a new version of the previous pirate ship ride, Bounty's Revenge. In terms of flat ride and experience offerings, Adventure World is quite diverse. There's a great kids area, quite a decent water slide collection, multiple swimming areas including Skull Rock, which is full of character, and a couple of really good thrill flats like Goliath and Black Widow. Bounty's Revenge will be a great new addition, bringing a slightly more moderate thrill ride to the park. Abyss, meanwhile, is an excellent thrill coaster that serves as a brilliant headliner for a park of this scale. What I think Adventure World is most missing is a signature family thrill attraction. One option would certainly be a flume ride, and actually, I think that's a really great idea for the park, but I don't want to give the same answer too many times in this video. Let's be real, almost every park in Australia could use a good flume ride. We have far too few. What's important about Adventure World's next attraction to me is that it's a headliner in the family thrill department, a stepping stone between the tamer kids rides and the larger thrill rides like Goliath and Abyss. Adventure World is fantastic in the kids department and has some amazing thrill rides, but really nothing in between that's bridging that gap, serving as a thrill ride that's a little more moderate and that families might ride together. A flume would fit that category nicely, like I said, but instead, I'm going to suggest a Gerstlauer family coaster along the lines of Défi du Dragon at Jardin d'Acclimatation. My French is awful. This coaster opened at the French Park in March of this year, and it looks like a great fit for Adventure World with a dynamic layout, a tire-propelled launch, a turntable, and zippy, fun transitions. It's also an incredibly interactive ride model. The turntable halfway through the ride randomly chooses to turn left or right, and the multi-pass launch randomly chooses to go forwards or backwards, giving the ride 4 possible modes and ride combinations. Such an innovative ride model could lend itself to Adventure World's theming as well. The park has a strong history of creating lore and stylization around their rides, so a dynamic little family coaster has a lot of potential. Recently, Adventure World have quietly closed down their Australian Wildlife Adventure section in the southwest corner of the park, which is a huge plot of land that would be more than enough for a coaster of this type. I'm picturing a castle built around the ride station as a tribute to Adventure World's former signature landmark, and I'm naming the ride The Quest. The quest will be fully themed in a medieval fashion to blend in with the Dragon's Kingdom, becoming the signature attraction of the area. It would feature lighting and sound effects in the station and throughout the layout, and a full backstory of your noble quest to a foreign kingdom to confront a fire-breathing dragon. I think a ride like this would lend itself to the symbolism of the park as well, with the castle returning as a park icon and becoming one of the standout attractions and sights at the park. Gerstlauer's dynamic and interactive family coaster design would be one of a kind for Australia, and Adventure World have a history of working with the German designer, which has worked out very well for them with Abyss. My one hope would be that Adventure World could progress to the next level with how they execute their theming. I've always been impressed by the creativity behind the lore and the stylization of their rides, but a family coaster like this presents an opportunity for them to commit to a more immersive theming project that really brings that lore to life, more so than what they've previously done. I'd love to see some special effects, animatronics, really just that next level of truly beautiful theming. And so that brings our journey around the country to a close with my official recommendation for Adventure World, The Quest. Before we go, I want to give a shout out to a Discord member at It's Red Queen on Discord. Red Queen asked if I could give a coaster the same name as a song, what would I choose and what model would it be? Thanks for your question, Red Queen. A very interesting idea. As a fan of the Aussie parks, the first thing that springs to mind is that we could have an AC/DC themed land with a coaster called High Voltage, which I'm imagining as a Vekoma Firestorm. It could be themed and have onboard audio. It'd be sort of a more intense and modern version of Rock and Roller Coaster. Thank you so much for watching and for being a supporter of my channel. If you'd like to be featured in my next video, you can leave a comment, send a message in my Discord linked in the description, or you can send me something in the mail. My PO box details are on the screen now. For now, this is Maloney's Coasters from somewhere in Australia, reminding you to be kind to one another, have a lovely day, and keep gaining credits. Bye.